Mr. Putin's attitude, the KGB-trained old Soviet mindset, they are looking for weakness to exploit. Showing that NATO is united, NATO means business and is ready to defend is the only way to deter possible Russian aggression.
Teid tulistati selle kuradi lagendiku ääres siit.
Jah. Üks oli siin nurgas ja teine oli keskel.
We're in Estonia with the Estonian Defence League, which is a national militia with around 15,000 members. Since Russia annexed Crimea last year, the membership here has gone up by 10%. Right now, we're in the forest. There are around 800 members, all training in a combat scenario. Over here, they've got a lot of guns with blanks. They're firing at their so-called enemy positions. And all this, in some way, is a response to Russia's aggression in Europe.
Since Russia's involvement in the Ukraine conflict, nearby Baltic states have been on high alert for fear they too will be affected. Estonia, which shares a border with Russia, spent €138 million on military equipment last year, the most in the country's history. The Estonian Defence League is also the largest militia in the region, who've trained alongside NATO troops that are stationed in the country.
The exercise is a final exercise of career courses for future commanders in Defence League. So we have here different levels, squad commanders, platoon leaders and company commanders.
The Defence League has grown in the last year, I think 10%. Considering there are 15,000 members, that's quite a lot. I mean, why do you think that is?
It goes a little bit more up when in security environment things are happening. It was exactly the same with the Georgian war. It was with Ukraine. After that, we got a lot more people because they saw that we are not just waiting for some kind of theoretical war, but we are helping and contributing to the security every day.
There are 800 volunteers of the Estonian Defence League in this forest. They're very well camouflaged. We've been walking about and every so often we'll just spot somebody and they seem extremely well trained considering they are volunteering, they're not getting paid, they're just part of what is essentially a militia.
Why do you join the Estonian Defence League?
As you know, we have some big angry neighbours. I'm not saying specific who, but...
It's the Russian state, no?
Well, the government, they call the state, yes. They have a problem with us and many other countries.
The Defence League has grown, you know, in the last 2 years. Why do you think that is?
Everyone feels they are in danger. It's like if you have been free for like 20-something years, then you have built something and you have to do something. Because if you can't protect yourself, then why should others?
Where's the enemy though?
There, and there.
So you're surrounded?
Not completely.
Right.
Whilst untested, the Estonian Defence League seemed well trained and took the prospects of deployment seriously. They operate under the Estonian Ministry of Defence, with many of its members in possession of firearms, making them a legitimate force should they be needed.
Kind of weird, you can see there's a guy here just going about his business, his house is there. You have all these soldiers moving about. It looks like war, but obviously it's just a simulated combat.
When NATO planes go over your head, you don't know what's happening. You know that something's going on, because this gives you the feeling that something's stirring. It's not as peaceful as we think here. This shows that they'll be needed here, because the NATO has gone bunkers.
In the old Roman Empire, they said that si vis pacem para bellum, if you want a peace, prepare to war. If Russia knows that attacking Estonia, it's not walking in the park, maybe Russia think twice. We had a very painful historical memories, and we don't want that year 1940 happened again when our freedom was given up without any resistance.
In late 2014, Russian soldiers invaded Crimea, a peninsula in Ukraine with a population made up of an ethnic Russian majority. After what is considered an unfair referendum, Crimea voted to join the Russian Federation. The conflict between Ukraine and Russian-backed rebels has so far claimed the lives of around 7,000 people.
Going well?
War is a rather bloody business.
"25% of Estonia's population is made up of ethnic Russians. The majority live on the country's eastern border with Russia."
So as we're getting closer to Estonia's eastern border, we're starting to see Russia's influence. For example, here there is an old Soviet tank which has kind of been put on display for everybody to see. Whilst it is just a relic of war, it does seem a little weird to have a big Soviet tank stationed right here with flowers on it, considering this country has only had independence from the Soviets for the last 24 years.
We went to Narva, the third largest city in Estonia, which sits just 300 meters from Russia on one side of a connecting bridge. Like Crimea, the majority of Narva's population is made up of ethnic Russians at nearly 90%.
Could you just explain to me what life is like for ethnic Russians here in Estonia?
The people living in Estonia, but mostly we are living mindfully living in Russia. It's only the small amount of the people who are not supporting the Russia in their activity in the Ukraine, and the people more trustful taking the news from Russia, not from Estonia or the Western sources.
NATO said that, there's a lot of aggression from Russia towards the Baltics, and that's why they're kind of fortifying borders.
But actually, it's quite comfortable to think about the Russian aggression sitting in the NATO headquarters in the Brussels. It's far away, but we are just it's Russia.
If 300 meters.
Yes, if we want to invade Narva, it will take only the 15 or 20 minutes because we have any power.
So do you think it's likely Russia would ever actually try to, come over and take Narva or have a referendum here?
The people doesn't want to. We have more good social fare here to compare to Russia. Oh, come on, it's not for us.
As was the case under the Soviet Union, ethnic Russians are economically better off in Estonia than they would be in Russia. To get an idea of how ethnic Russians are treated today, we spoke to the chairman of the Union of Ethnic Russians in Estonia, who works in Narva and throughout the country.
In response to Russia, the things that have happened in Ukraine, there have been NATO bases, built up here in Estonia. There have been a lot of US troops. As an ethnic Russian living in Estonia, what do you think about that?
Понимаю, что это нормальное противостояние. Сейчас вот это Россия-НАТО, скажем, или Россия. Это вызывает озабоченность определенную. Если и дальше, скажем, пойдет наращивание присутствия здесь войск Соединенных Штатов, то, конечно, население не воспримет это как правильный, наверное, ход и шаг в этом направлении. Если посмотреть на российскую сторону, то мы там этого не видим.
And do you think maybe, because there's so many Russians here in Narva, do you think Narva should be a part of Russia?
Вопрос достаточно сложный, я вам скажу, в этом плане, потому что если есть у большинства населения, проживающего, скажем, на каких-то больших анклавах в государстве, желание отсоединиться, этому никто не препятствует. Если эта воля со стороны чьих-то государств приводит к тому, что, наверное, произошло в Донбассе.
Царю небесный, утешителю души истины, слава тебе, Боже наш, слава тебе.
Just a plot in Narva where many Soviet soldiers are buried. This guy here is a former Soviet, and they were telling us that this whole plot, all of these roads have been paid for by the Kremlin. So what do you think about the situation in Estonia now? Because you have NATO troops here, US troops, the EU are about to send 100 new troops here.
Я просто думаю, что это все глупости по поводу расширения военного присутствия в регионе. Конечно, я считаю, что нагнетание ситуации в военной сфере это в большей степени лоббист, которому нужно продать танки, продать это как самолеты.
Would you say Russians are not treated the same as Estonians, like ethnic Russians here in Estonia?
Посмотреть процентные отношения в парламенте. Сколько там русских и сколько там эстонцев. То есть там 5 человек русских и 101 человека. И это можно говорить интеграция, дезинтеграция, но реально русские не допущены к механизму принятия решений.
In the unlikely event that Russia did come over the border and try and invade Estonia, do you think the Estonian Defence League stand a chance?
Потому что по опыту, то, что я посмотрел на Украине, людям, которым гражданским случайно дают оружие, то есть это большая проблема.
Русские в Нарве, они не такие, как русские в России. Допустим, в России там, наверное, скажут, что все, что творится, в основном американцы виноваты. То, конечно, и американцы, ну и русские, наверное, я так думаю. Хотя, как бы, господи, как бы в политике я... Ну...
Since Russia's aggression in Ukraine, there's been a notable increase in NATO presence in the Baltics. In Estonia, American fighter jets are stationed at one of the country's military air bases, Camp Ameri.
Today we're going out to Tapa Range, over on the east side of Tallinn. Been here for just about a month so far. I think it's a beautiful country. The flying has been really good. And can't complain about weather like this.
So you're looking at the A-10, aptly named the Warthog. They like the look of the shark teeth, painted it on there, and then at the same time, they picked up the nickname of Flying Tigers.
It looks scary.
It's fantastic, isn't it? It's a thing of beauty. Yeah, yeah. We say there's nothing better in the world than flying jets with teeth. The 74th Fighter Squadron right now is participating in the Theater Security Package as part of Operation Atlantic Resolve. Operation Atlantic Resolve is a demonstration of the United States' commitment to its NATO allies.
A lot of what I've read, especially in the annual reports from Estonia, they say they're concerned about aggression from Russia because, of course, you know, things are going on in Europe. I mean, do you think that's a part of why they would perhaps request for, you know, the allies to come over here?
Certainly, worldwide, there's been some destabilization down in the Ukraine area. The real reason we're here is to enhance the peace and stability through this region.
A lot of people say, oh, well, the fact that Americans are in Estonia, it's almost like, you know, a sign of provocation.
So any military force inherently has a deterrent effect. Where that deterrence is felt or looked at or projected can be really a perception based on the people looking, right? When you leave someone's home, you'd always like to be invited back and not have someone ask, hey, happy they're gone, right? So yeah, all indications are 2 thumbs up.
We spoke to Colonel Jack Tarian, who recently came under criticism from the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They called his plans to expand Amri Air Base for increased NATO presence an openly provocative step.
Okay, welcome to the air traffic control tower of Amri Air Base. We got 2 Estonian controllers, we have an American representative here, and we have a German Air Force representative there. Since 1st of May last year, 2014, we have had NATO units here on a rotational basis performing the NATO Baltic Air Policing mission following President Obama's visit last year in September when he said that he would see Amri as a great place for increased American presence here.
Why do you think NATO have decided, you know, within the last 2 years to suddenly start doing all this?
When it really started, when Russia occupied Crimea in February and March, Estonian people were quite nervous. I got asked by close family and friends, hey, is it time to pack our families to ships and to a safer place and get ready for war? People were that afraid. When the Allies started showing up, it really calmed people down.
Have you seen any actual threats? Have they tried to breach the airspace or anything like that?
Well, we've seen numerous exercises, the snap exes that are infamous now. On the Ukrainian border, they had large exercises, so this is kind of their standard practice.
Russia will say, well, you know, America are just trying to use Estonia to kind of bully us to show that there's aggression here. I mean, what do you think to that?
Soviet propaganda has always done that. I grew up as a kid in Soviet Union, in Soviet-occupied Estonia, and I remember being 5 years old and discussing with my buddies, are we going to see year 2000? And we came to a conclusion that no, because America is building a neutron bomb, they're coming with war. So that was the product of Soviet propaganda.
In the unlikely event that Russia did invade and they crossed the border, how effective do you think all of this would be?
The current troop level, of course, would not be sufficient to withhold Russian invasion. It is here to remind Mr. Putin that this is NATO, and he wouldn't have an illusion that he would get away with a bilateral conflict with Estonia, that he knows that he's attacking entire NATO.
Mission time! Boy, tell you what, if you can't get up for some Friday morning flights in NATO country, you're not even trying. This right here was the original Walt Disney drawing of the Flying Tigers.
Really? Walt Disney did it?
That's correct.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, pretty neat, right? It is. This all needs to be in slow mo.
Being a NATO country allows Estonia protection under Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty. This clause states that an attack on one NATO ally is considered an attack on all of them, meaning if Russia invaded Estonia, it would potentially start a conflict with the whole of NATO. Whilst NATO justifies its presence as a means of fortifying the Baltics, Russia claims that it's an act of provocation towards them.
Tseremoniaalkahur, tuld!
Kaitseliitlased, tervis!
Need, kes kursuse lõpetasid, teie töö nüüd alles algab. See siin oli teooria, edasi tuleb praktika. Neile, kellele Eesti riik ei meeldi, olgu nad siis rohelised mehikesed, nagu neid on kutsutud.
In the unlikely event that there was a show of aggression directly here in Estonia from Russia, how do you think the Defence League would do?
The armed citizens is the best deterrence what one can have, and if the armed citizens are also having an enormous defense wall, that will multiply these effects.
Some people are critical of the Defence League and say that they're quite anti-Russian. I mean, what would you respond to that?
Everybody is anti-Russian in their propaganda, but we are not against anyone. We are blessed with our neighbors, but just one who makes us trouble. If that one invades another sovereign country, naturally we have some suspicion on that.
So basically, I went through this 247 hours. Now I need to do some practicing, basically, so I become a younger sergeant.
Are you ready to fight the Russians yet?
I hope that they won't cross the border, but if whoever crosses our border, we will defend our country. What's up?
The Estonian Defence League is growing in size, and the NATO presence in the country is ongoing. However, it seems the fear of being invaded is stronger than the actual threat of Russia crossing the border. But whilst Russian invasion in Estonia was unlikely, Putin's recent unpredictable foreign policy has the country on edge.